年4月，受美中关税与出口管制影响，辉达在拜登时期为中国市场量身设计的 H20晶片，一度因新一轮对中限制而遭到川普政府禁止出口。经过数个月的斡旋，禁令在7月获得解除，但美方同时要求辉达必须缴交相关收入的15%作为分成。就在外界以为危机暂时解除之际，中国方面却传出政府对 H20晶片的安全性表达疑虑，并劝阻要求国企暂缓采购相关产品。随后，辉达通知部分供应商停止生产 ，H20在中国的出货实际上进入暂停状态。这起事件使中国 AI 基础设施的采购节奏再度生变，也进一步压缩了外资晶片在华的可用窗口。这不仅凸显了中美科技与贸易政策之间的复杂互动，也折射出产业在地缘风险下被迫重构的现实。
NVIDIA is developing a new AI chip for China. That's according to two sources who said the US tech giant will base the chips on its latest Blackwell architecture. They said it will also be more powerful than the H20 model NVIDIA is currently allowed to sell there. US President Donald Trump last week implied the firm might be permitted to sell more advanced chips in China. But the sources noted US regulatory approval isn't guaranteed.
We've prepared a lot of H20 already, but now we are waiting for purchase orders from China customers. And so when we receive the orders, we will be able to produce more.
A group of Senate Democrats writing a letter to President Trump asking him to walk back his deal to sell chips to China, saying the following: the willingness displayed in this arrangement to negotiate away America's competitive edge that is key to our national security in exchange for what is, in effect, a commission on a sale of AI-enabling technology to our main global competitor is cause for serious alarm.
Well, look, what I'm concerned about today is press accounts that NVIDIA is continuing to develop farther and farther cutting-edge chips for export to China. Obviously, this is a race for whose technology and whose standards are going to govern in the 21st century. And I want free markets and free societies and democracies to have the upper hand against an authoritarian regime like the PRC that is trying to embed their systems and their technology into everything.
We want to keep having the Chinese use the American technology stack because they still rely upon it, and that's key. So we try to play that balance. We don't sell them our best stuff, not our second best stuff, not even our third best. I think fourth best is where we've come out that we're cool.
Now the Financial Times reporting that senior Beijing officials found Lutnick's comments, quote, insulting, and are reportedly as a result asking large tech companies like Alibaba and ByteDance to scale back or completely halt their H20 AI orders. That move could be a setback for NVIDIA, especially after CEO Jensen Huang's recent high-profile trip to Beijing and after getting the green light from Washington to restart shipping chips to China.
The AI chip race just got complicated, and NVIDIA is right in the middle of it. CEO Jensen Huang says they're in talks with the US government to try to get a more advanced AI chip to China. NVIDIA is reportedly working on a new chip for China called the B30A, which will be more powerful than the H20, which is the current export-compliant model. But here's where it gets, let's say, messy. Just when it appeared that the H20 was allowed back to China after being banned by the US government, NVIDIA has now reportedly told some suppliers to halt production of the H20. Now that comes after Chinese authorities cracked down on the chips over security concerns. They're also encouraging domestic firms to use chips from homegrown companies like Huawei. US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick's recent comments about not getting the best stuff to China also not going down well in Beijing. So why does this all matter? Well, China makes up for 13% of NVIDIA's chip sales, and AI chip exports are crucial for maintaining growth. Underscoring all of that, Jensen Huang has made trips to both the White House and Beijing. But it's clearly not that straightforward.
There was more from Reuters. 700,000 chips are now supposedly sitting idle at packaging plants, and that comes just weeks after President Trump reversed his own ban on these exact same AI chips. NVIDIA's China revenue, to your point, Sarah, has already fallen from 26% to 13% of total revenues in just 3 years. But while Wall Street sees this as a China problem for NVIDIA, it's actually accelerating China's move away from NVIDIA and all American suppliers. Chinese companies, for example, now hold 16 of the top 20 spots in open source AI rankings, 80%. According to Artificial Analysis. The U.S. just has 3 in the open source models, and they're building these models to run on Chinese hardware. Take DeepSeek's delayed R2 model. Markets saw the Huawei chip issues as bullish for NVIDIA because it couldn't work on Huawei. But sources tell me that's the wrong read. DeepSeek had to train R2 on NVIDIA chips because Huawei's software issues, but they're still planning to run the finished model on Huawei chips. The key insight, training happens periodically, but inference happens millions of times. And if developers build apps on these Chinese AI models, they'll be running on Chinese hardware, and that's what worries NVIDIA. It's not just DeepSeek. Tech giant Baidu built its Ernie model specifically for Huawei chips. Z.ai is doing the same. China is systematically building out an AI ecosystem that doesn't need NVIDIA. So while NVIDIA gets squeezed between Washington's restrictions and Beijing's security concerns, China is solving its chip dependency problem. NVIDIA's earnings next week will show the near-term impact, but the real threat is China building an entire AI ecosystem that doesn't need NVIDIA at all.
科技媒体 WCCF Tech 援引华尔街投行 Jefferies 的最新报告指出，北京政府已经全面禁止采购辉达 H20 晶片，并要求所有厂商暂停购买降规版的美国 AI 晶片，直到另行通知。换句话说，中国业者目前已经无法再向辉达下单。对辉达而言，这个时机无疑再糟糕不过。4月受到关税的波及 ，H20 就曾因出口禁令而被迫注销55亿美元的库存。7月好不容易等到解禁，有报告指出，辉达立刻向台积电追加30万片 H20 晶片作为备货。然而8月尚未结束，北京再度出手。H20 的出路瞬间蒙上阴影。根据 The Information 的报道，目前辉达有大批半成品晶片正堆置在 Anchor 工厂，形成库存高墙。但更值得注意的是中国国产替代的加速。根据 TrendForce 研究报告，2024年中国 AI 伺服器市场中，进口晶片的市占率约为 63%， 但预计到2025年将显著下降至约 42%。与此同时，中国本土晶片如华为等预估将快速增长至约 40% 市占，几乎与进口晶片持平，显示中国国产 AI 晶片在伺服器市场的渗透率正在快速提升，已经从过去的边缘化转向市场主力角色。尽管辉达短期内仍是全球 AI 训练的核心供应商，但中国已经逐步建立起去辉达化的底气。这场矛盾背后反映出更深层的结构性对抗。全球人工智慧的竞赛已经成为地缘政治棋盘的核心战场。
The release of DeepSeek AI from a Chinese company should be a wake-up call for our industries that we need to be laser-focused on competing to win.
It's no secret the Trump administration views Chinese tech advances as a threat. The U.S. has put export controls on chips being sold to China. It's one of the major hurdles in the current trade war. Before DeepSeek's shock announcement this year, a lot of U.S. companies and policymakers had believed that China was at least a decade behind in AI innovation.
Here's a quote from Microsoft's president, Brad Smith. He said this in May to a Senate hearing. The number one factor that will define whether the U.S. or China wins this race, this AI race, is whose technology is more broadly adopted in the rest of the world. Whoever gets there first will be difficult to supplant. How does the United States get there first, Congressman?
Well, I love the question. This is our opportunity to beat China once again. We lead the world in not only the internet and, of course, space. This is our opportunity to lead on AI. And the way we do it is we make big investments in America. That means energy production. In order to truly fuel AI, you need about 8 times more energy than conventional. So that's why we're moving fast-track legislation so you have green lights on permitting and really moving forward in a positive way. These are the manufacturing jobs that Americans want, and will fuel this AI revolution, the data centers that are needed to fuel that. So the president is getting investment from companies like Meta, Google, Blackstone, really getting the ball moving, which no one thought possible just a few months ago because of the red tape and regulations in the prior administration.
Like Washington, Beijing wants to shape global norms for the use of AI and sees an opportunity in the global south in particular.
We are willing to share indigenous technologies and innovation scenarios with the world.
Yet the choice of US or Chinese AI technology is unlikely to be binary, at least for now. Governments have navigated the twin poles of power for years and will likely keep doing so until an obvious reason emerges to pick a side.
There are two internet in the world. One is China internet. Another is the world internet. So the internet ecosystem in China is totally different from the world.
Yet more than ever, Chinese technology firms are positioning themselves as international companies. And big or small, they're betting cheaper AI will spark more innovation. And that China's AI boom is only beginning.
How good are China's own AI chips, and will their guidance against NVIDIA's H20 actually stick? Washington just cleared NVIDIA and AMD to sell downgraded AI chips to China, but only if they hand over 15% of those sales back to the US. Trump calls the H20 obsolete, yet still insists there's a market for it in China.
The chip that we're talking about, the H20, it's an old chip, but the H20 is obsolete. You know, it's one of those things, but it still has a market.
Beijing's response? Security warnings, environmental critiques, and letters discouraging H20 use, especially in government work. It's not an outright ban, but it's part of a playbook that China's used against Apple, Tesla, Intel, and Micron. Squeeze foreign technology, boost domestic alternatives. Huawei's AI chips are catching up fast. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang has called them formidable.
Huawei's technology, based on our best understanding at the moment, and we have a lot of ground truth there, is probably comparable to an H200. And so they've been moving quite fast.
But even Huawei still can't meet all the demand, and moving ecosystems is messy. Even Beijing-backed AI firms have struggled and had delays when moving off NVIDIA. That's the bind. China wants self-sufficiency, Washington wants control, and NVIDIA is stuck in the middle.
在中国没有的时候，外国芯片呢要交专利费，它会卖很高价，或者说把价格提得很高。一旦我们做出来的时候呢，它马上就降价，它要把你压死。目的什么呢？挤掉其他厂家的芯片，让大家都只能买我的。你买我的，加入到我的专利保护伞，就不会有人告你了。当然，你的代价你要把你的专利贡献出来。所以我们说，什么东西你不做，永远是受制于人。
受到美中政策反复拉锯的影响，本周辉达股价虽然回落，但依旧获得华尔街资金的支持。尽管第二季辉达未能对中国市场出售 H20 晶片，但仍有部分非中国客户购买了库存产品，显示需求尚在。目前华尔街分析师普遍认为，中国对辉达第三季财报的实质贡献将相当有限。不过，辉达执行长黄仁勋仍然展现对中国市场高度的信心。他强调，人工智慧竞赛已经开打，而 Blackwell 正是这场竞赛的核心平台，更用非凡来形容 Blackwell 的销售表现。事实上 ，H20 晶片的停产不只是美国封锁、中国内控、辉达调试的缩影，更凸显 AI 并未如部分外界评论所说的进入泡沫化。相反的，随着美中两国同时加码人工智慧投资，这场竞争正在为市场注入更强劲的动能。可以预见，在关税战之外 ，AI 已成为美中角力的新战场。而正因这场博弈，人工智慧的发展热度恐怕还会持续升温。